So if you're watching or listening to this episode and you're not getting at least 2 listings per month, then this episode is for you. And the reason why I preface that, Dominic, with 2 is for a specific reason that I'll bring up here later in the conversation. But I want to talk about the pros and cons and the when you would and when you wouldn't look to have a quality, a quantity appointment business model versus a quality appointment business model. And that's the best way to put it. We're talking about, okay, when does it make sense for you to purposefully go out there and generate and get in front of as many people as possible versus saying, no, I don't need to go in front of as many people as possible because I'm going to disqualify. I'm only going to set high qualified appointments and go on a lot less of them. So let's get into this for a minute, and then I'll get your thoughts on it. This came up, of course, because we were just talking off air. One of the agents that we're coaching right now had asked the question to say, listen, when would I use a preview appointment methodology versus looking to only go on highly qualified listing appointments? And this is what I told him, and I'll share this with the audience, Dominic, and then I'll get your feedback on this. The preview appointment, and I think a lot of people miss this, is the actual mechanism to convert the contact into a lead, and you need that face-to-face appointment to do it because you don't have the skills to do it over the phone yet. So here's, in practical terms, I'll give you the case study. If either an agent who is not consistent with their outbound prospecting, large portion there, or is consistent with their prospecting like this agent was, I mean, he's doing 50 contacts a day, so he's highly disciplined, doing the work, just lacks the skill, then you would shift away from over or disqualifying appointments and going on, less is more, picky and choosy. You'd actually incorporate purposefully a preview appointment strategy where you could get in front of 20 to 30 people per month. And yes, a large portion of them will not come to fruition. We already know that. But what will happen is your conversion on those from contact to lead will increase. And so that's when you would do it, because if you're prospecting and you're just not getting any appointments, you're not getting any listings, you're not getting any leads, it's because selling over the phone is very, 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 very hard. It's very hard. So we'll get into the nuance of like what a preview appointment means and all that. But what are your initial thoughts?
Yeah. So this is a question that does come up fairly frequently. Usually it's inside of the frame of how I'm not a skilled telephone prospector. Most agents, as you know, come into the business. They don't have $1 million and are ready to spend the next 2 years building up their business. Like, they need to get going right now. And this question comes up under the context of, hey, how do I get up and going fast while I work on my telephone skills? And the preview appointment strategy comes into play because it's a very non-threatening way for a new agent and somebody who's actively selling their home to come together face to face. And most people would say that, hey, listen, I'm just better at engaging with people face to face rather than over the phone. And that's perfectly natural. They have all their tools available to them. So we will set up an agent on a preview appointment strategy so that they start to get comfortable developing those skills face to face that eventually they'll use on the phone and be able to leverage their business. I guess that's the summary.
That's right. And so let me just get really, really clear and make sure that we get in front of something that I can already hear people in the comments saying, which is, oh, preview appointments are a waste of time. You only go on an appointment if you qualify to death, et cetera, et cetera. All right. In a perfect world, you would only go on a listing appointment that was highly disqualified. Like, you would disqualify like crazy, and therefore the quality of the appointment was very, 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 very high. In a perfect world. In a perfect world, you wouldn't go spend hours and hours and hours and hours of a month driving around to go meet people face to face that were never going to list their house with you. Okay, we know that. Putting that aside for a second, there's an argument or a strategy on why you would do that. So let me give the two arguments. In this case, we'll talk about Agent, and we won't say his real name. We'll just say his name is Bob. In this case, Bob is prospecting. He's newer to prospecting. He's newer to sales, et cetera, et cetera. He's prospecting every single day. And not only is he prospecting every single day, he's doing 50 conversations per day. And because he's in coaching, he's tracking his numbers. And we looked at this for last month, in the month of August, Dominic, he only set 3 listing appointments and only went on one. He only went on one. And so if you look at the conversion, all right, let's just look at this for a second. And this is what I want to share with the audience is like, why in the world would you ask me to do this? Well, I'm going to give you a really good argument for why you should. So if he's doing 50 contacts, it's 250 a week. So he's doing 1,000 contacts, right? So 1,000 contacts got him on one face-to-face appointment. What is the conversion of that? 0.01% or something?
Yeah.
Is that what it is?
It's 0.00. It's 0.01%.
Yeah. Not very high. Not very high. So here's the argument. So we're going to have this agent in this month of September and October focus on setting preview appointments. A preview appointment, for those people that are listening or watching the show, is an appointment where you set with a homeowner to come and preview the home. It isn't under the pretense of you have a buyer, and it is not under the pretense of you're going there as a listing appointment. It's because you're in real estate and someone who is actively selling their home says, okay, yeah, you're in real estate. It makes sense to let you over my house. All right. So that's what it is. So you're going to preview the home. Here's what we know about preview appointments. This conversion is very high. From conversation to appointment set is very, very, very high. You could probably set one for every 20 conversations. So if this agent does half the contacts, 500 divided by 20, so if you go, half the contacts, so 500.
Yeah, 250 would be half of the contacts.
Yes. So 250 contacts divided by 20 contacts. So they would get him on 12 face-to-face appointments, doing half of the prospecting he's doing now to get on 12 appointments. Now, here's what we also know. We also know that about 35 to 40% of preview appointments turn into high-quality listing appointments. And in this case, if he's going on 12, that would turn into about 4 appointments met. So he's going from a place where he's doing 1,000 contacts. It's a lot of work, equaling 1 listing appointment met, to going to a strategy where he's doing 25% of the work and getting double the result. So if he only does 250 contacts next month at a 20% conversion, he's going on 12. Of the 12, 4 are real listing appointments. That's why you would do this. Why? Because at those 12 face-to-face appointments, like you said, most people are better in a face-to-face conversation than they are over the telephone. And so they're able to uncover an opportunity when they're face-to-face that they did not have the skill to do over the phone. And we have evidence of that. So that's typically how we see this playing out. So if you're not getting 1 or 2 listings per month, it's like, okay, shift that for a couple of months until now you have a time problem because you've generated money and now you don't have enough time. Then you can start working on your skill set to generating more higher quality appointments. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it makes total sense to me. And I'm sure you're going to get into it, but this doesn't have to be a strategy for beginners. Over the years we've been doing this, we have had multiple agents who start having success with this preview appointment framework, and it's working so well. Like, why would I change this? They just keep doing it. Just keep building and building and building, and just go around having preview appointments that turn into listing appointments, that turn into listings, and they just never go away from it.
That's right. And so the thing is like you're still, if you look at the time argument, like, okay, well, I'm spending so much time driving. Well, if you weren't, you'd be spending that time on the phone. The trade-off here, I want to be really, really clear. Let me just share my screen. You know, I love to write on things as I talk. It just helps me to get clear in my mind. I don't know if the audience is that way or not, but this is what we're talking about. This is a trade-off. You've got time spent over here, right? So okay, this is what I was going to say. So get rid of that. So if we have time, if you're going to spend, I'm just saying, 4 hours a day, call it, in lead generation, and you have two different strategies. You've got this quality over here, and we just talked about quantity over here. So this would be preview appointment. This would be quality, a QLA over here, quality listing appointment over here. Here's the thing. You're not, and this is what people always want to argue with me, like you're just wasting so much time on the preview appointment. If it's the same time, like if you're going to spend, you'll have to do a lot less phone prospecting over here. So you could probably set an appointment every day, a preview appointment, only prospecting for 1 hour a day. But yeah, you might spend 3 hours driving, right? And then going on your appointments. That's perfectly reasonable. An hour at the appointment and then an hour and a half or two of driving probably makes sense. And this would result in you doing what we want agents to do, 20 previews per month, right? Again, we talked about 35% of those turning into listing appointments. So in this case, it'd be 8. And you could walk away with 3 to 4 listings in a month. That's that business model. Versus if you're going to go and only focus on quality listing appointments, then you're going to have to spend all 4 hours per day on the phone to find these listing appointments. So it's not that you're actually spending more or less time. The time, which I realized over years of coaching thousands of agents, Dominic, is the same. It's just where are you spending the time strategically, because you're better at one thing than the other. And so if you're not that great at selling over the phone, go get in front of people. Good things will happen. It's that simple.
Yep. I would add this as well, Brandon. I'm unaware of a statistic. It's probably out there, but a statistic that tells us how many sellers list with one of the first few agents that call them. But I do know that there is a hard statistic that says that home sellers as a whole spend less than 3 hours total researching how to sell their home, and 80% of them sign a listing agreement with one of the first 2 agents they meet.
Great point. Which again, it's just another argument for getting in front of homeowners, regardless if they're ready to sign a listing contract tonight or not. You could still make a business case for why you should do that. Okay, now let's make the other argument, when you should not do this anymore. And so it's pretty clear, but it's just going to be the opposite of everything. So it no longer makes sense for an agent to go on preview appointments when their skills on the phone are really good, such that they can set enough listing appointments where they're hitting their goal, only having to go on a lot less appointments. And so they spend a lot less time in the car. They spend more time on the phone, and they have a lot less time, but they have a lot more money. So that's the teeter-totter effect. So as you start to make more money in this business, typically what that means is you got less and less time. And the exact opposite is true. Like the newer person just getting started, broke as a joke, they got tons of time. They got nothing but time. And so when it doesn't make sense to just drive around, meet with every Tom, Dick, and Harry, is when your business is in momentum. You're starting to list 2, 3, 4 houses per month. You have good cash flow. You don't have to go and meet with as many people to end up at the same place, because your phone skills now have increased. Now you have a pipeline. Now you start getting repeat referral business, et cetera, et cetera. Then you can protect your time a little bit more around not having to spend so much time in the car. What would you say to that?
Yeah, I mean, totally agree. And it's going to be a little bit different for everybody based on their business model and their ability to handle the business that they have. I mean, some agents are going to feel overwhelmed with 2 active listings a month, and others can do 10. So when you get to that point in your business, you're like, man, all right, I'm full-time servicing my listings, full-time taking care of my sellers. I got to stay in the office. I mean, that's when you know, right? Or you leverage and go out and hire either a virtual assistant or a buyer's agent or some sort of executive assistant to help you leverage so you can keep doing whatever it is you're good at, whether that's mastering your continuing to leverage with phone skills, or maybe you want to spend all day going on preview appointments, but you have the option then.
That's right. And I'll share the audience with one other thing that I often talk about with agents that we coach. It's also personality driven. So here's the other thing, right? So when you look at the 4 personality styles and we say, okay, you've got driver, you've got amiable, analytical, expressive. Here's the other thing. Typically, this is what I tell people. If you are on the left side of the quadrant, okay, if you're over here, you probably do better with a QLA business model, quality listing appointment model, because you have less patience. You want to get right down to business. You don't like small talk, et cetera, et cetera. If you're on this side of the quadrant, you probably will do really, really well with a preview appointment model or strategy. Because if you're an expressive or an amiable, you love people. You love to hug and kiss people. You love to go and meet people. You thrive on people. You know, where these two people are like, if I could be around people less, that'd be better for me. I just want to go and do the job, right? I'm not interested in making friends, et cetera, et cetera. So that's the other part of this, Dominic, that I don't know if you've ever thought about, but it is personality driven as well.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, there's definitely agents that we coach and agents that we know in our markets who definitely are infinitely better in person. You go into an open house and they're just alive, but you know that they're not going to make it on the phone, right?
Exactly.
So this is the kind of that's the kind of decision they have to make, and I think those people already know typically that they're good with face-to-face interactions, and the preview appointment strategy is an excellent fit for them, at least to start.
Yeah, and because when you go even deeper to the personality thing, if you look at the expressive as an example, they can't sit their ass down for 2 hours and make calls. Never. They're bouncing around like crazy. They can't stay focused on anything. And so they would never, it makes all the sense in the world where they'd only have to like make calls for 30 to 40 minutes a day to get their one preview appointment every single day. And then they're off doing what they love, to get in front of people, to have conversations, to do the dog and pony show. Where the driver analytical maybe has a higher level of discipline or focus. And so it behooves them. They thrive off discipline. They thrive off structure. They thrive on, following a schedule, et cetera, et cetera. They can have a rigid prospecting schedule where they're doing it for 2, 3, 4 hours a day. And it's like, I'm only going on this appointment if I think that I can get the listing at the appointment.
Yeah. Yep. Totally agree. And I think they know there's some more granular things about a preview appointment, but one of those would be, oftentimes when a for sale by owner comes on the market, they're going to get hammered with phone calls by agents that have a prospecting business model. But if you get there in person early on in the process, usually works best. And how much more memorable are you going to be when you make those subsequent phone calls to ask that prospect, hey, how's it going? When you're following up with them, they're going to have a face and a personal interaction to recall, as opposed to a phone call, which, you have to be damn good on the phone to be a memorable voice, right?
It's such a great point. It makes the whole process of conversion and follow up, to your point, I won't regurgitate what you just said. It makes that just way, way easier. And so here's a really good place to potentially share with people that will help them hopefully a lot. So check this out. If we look at, when we talk about like a lead, right? The easiest way to define this is that a lead has 4, you can argue it has 5, whatever, but it has 4 main components, okay? And I know you know this, but for the audience sake, they have clear motivation to sell a house. They've agreed to interview you to list the home. They have clear timelines, and they give you a valid email address. Now, if you can get these over the phone and not never have to leave, stick with a QLA. But most people cannot. They don't have the skills to get these over the telephone. So we go get these at the face-to-face. That's what the preview appointment strategy is for. And so they're like, well, what's the goal of the appointment? Like, what do I do when I get there? When I get there, because you weren't able to find out, do this person has motivation to actually sell, or are they just kind of like one of the people is like, I'll sell if I get my price? Do they actually have a specific reason to sell? Okay, if they, for whatever reason, can't sell it on their own or decide to come back on the market later, et cetera, would they be open to interviewing me for the job? Yes or no? When do they want to do this thing? Right? And then does the conversation go such that they want me to follow up with them and therefore they've given me their email address? So you would preferably get this over the phone. If you cannot, go face to face. That's what you're doing. It is a lead conversion system. So you go phone call, preview appointment, lead generated, versus phone call, lead generated. So that's what it is. And so when I've done that with agents in the past, they say, okay, now it's a lot more clear. I'm going there to find out if I have a lead. It's not a lead, right? The preview appointment in and of itself is not a lead. You're going there to find out if it is a lead because you couldn't find out over the phone.